6:18, I'll call the meeting to order. The first order, this Raleigh Water Commissioners meeting, the first order of business is to restructure the board. With that being said, I'll make a motion to nominate Timothy Toomey for the chairman. Do I have a second?
No. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Next, I'll make a motion to nominate John Manning for vice chair.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carried.
I'll make a motion to be clerk. Make a motion for Stu Dalzell to be the clerk.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now it's Tim's meeting.
With that being said, there you are, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. On the agenda tonight is accept and approve the minutes of July 29, 2014. I want to table that to the following meeting. I hadn't had a chance to do that. I was on vacation for the last 2 weeks. What I plan on doing is going through the video and trying to reconstruct some of the verbiage in that. So, the next in order is accept and approve the minutes of May 19, 2015.
Make a motion to accept those minutes.
Do I have a second?
I just need 1 minute.
Okay.
Did I pass them over to you?
All I really need still is, I think I got this. This is
I
what-
believe in the minutes was 3 in favor of turning the water on a cemetery. One abstained. It was 2-1, I believe.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can help me with this.
All right. John abstained.
I abstained.
Other than that, I have no problem. Any questions, John?
Nope, you could make a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. 6:05 to 6:15 is the citizen query. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. White?
Yeah, Larry White, Central Street. Couple of things. On the tour of the water treatment plant, I noticed that I'm going to call it 2 banks of all filters. In talking with the operators, I think they're being used about 50% of the time, not whenever they're on. If that's correct, I would at least like the water department to look into either running them at like 60-40 or 70-30 so that both banks and filters don't have to be replaced at about the same time. Also, Dayton Corporation acquired the Ball Corporation 2 weeks ago, and this might affect the existence of Ball Corporation. The filter element would be bought each year, costing $20,000, and now I think the money is put into some type of an account, and when the whole bank of filters needs to be replaced, we should have enough money to replace it. But with the all being taken over, I don't know whether that money is in some type of an escrow account or something that at least is reserved should something happen to the Paul Corporation. I'd at least like to know that your money, our money, is being protected. I don't know whether we can hold the money and buy the bank of filters at the time, or whether there's some requirement that Paul holds the 20,000 a year. Third thing is.
Excuse me, Larry, can we do one at a time here?
Sure.
Okay, so the first question was, the Paul membranes are used 50% of the time. And why can't we do it 60-40? Is that the first question?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an operational thing. But it's my understanding, when we got that thing operational, that the only reason it's worth using 50% of the time is because when they do a back flush on one skid unit, they have to shut that down to do the back flush, and they continue on with the treatment on the other one. So maybe that's where the 50% comes in. I'm not sure. I don't know if one's laying dormant there. Perhaps our superintendent can answer that. Is that true that each skid is used half the time down there, or are they used concurrently with each other, but they're switching back and forth?
One skid is in operation, while the other one they alternate it. So one is in operation, the other one is down for cleaning, and then they swap them off. They're supposed to be.
Basically, both of them are being used the same amount of time, and I didn't know whether it would be better to have one operate more than the other, so that they don't need, both of them need replacement at the same time. I don't know, that's something that Paul or you are more knowledgeable about.
Well, you got to remember, when we had that issue last year, when you had the original startup of the facility in April, and then the facility lay dormant for 4 months, and then we had to have the Paul Corporation come in and recondition the filters because they went dry. So we alternate them to keep them wet. They need to have solution in there.
Right.
So that's why they alternate, for that reason. We can't leave them offline for more than 48 hours or so, or we'll run into operational conditions.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons, why.
Okay, so the second question is the amount of money that's set aside for replacement of the Paul membrane. We had, as I recall, a couple of years ago, we set aside some, I don't know if it was free cash money. We put that into a special account. So I think there's a special account labeled for Paul membrane replacement. And I think it's really kind of designated for that, but I could be wrong. It might be more of a operational, not an operational, but a maintenance type of a fund that's set aside in our budget. So it's not like we've given money to Paul membrane. We've just set aside in our own internal housekeeping or in our internal accounting where that money is slated for. And
Okay, as long as, Rowley Water Department has those funds, and because I was under the impression that the Paul Corporation was holding those funds.
I don't think so. Karen Summit or maybe the superintendent could look into that for you. And what's your third part of the question?
Chairman Dooley, if I could further clarify.
Sure.
Last year, we went to town, in fall town meeting, and we asked to transfer $21,000 from stabilization into the operating budget for the purpose of purchasing filters. So that the idea is to, going forward, incorporate $21,000 a year in the budget to purchase the filters over several years to lessen the impact of the one large dollar amount to incorporate into the budget. So for the FY16 budget, there is a line item in there for $21,000 to purchase Paul filters. But there's no special account. We have to allocate it, which we've done in the FY16 budget.
As long as Paul Corporation isn't holding the money,
No, they are not.
Okay, we allocated 10 minutes for citizen query. Is there any other questions that anybody might have? Okay. Okay, Larry.
Use up all the 10 minutes. I would like to see the rescinding of the free water for the cemetery, AgCom, and town wharf. I understand that the revenues are down, and certainly the AgCom, cemetery, and wharf, I think, can help with the revenue situation. I'm not speaking entirely for the AgCom. We might have representatives here, but when I talked with them, they were willing to take away the free water and pay for it out of their budget that they have in those donations. Something to consider.
So this is just the agricultural committee?
Well,
Or the cemetery?
People and are not the commissioners or so.
Yeah.
But I don't know about them, but I still would like to see the free water rescinded, at least until such time as there's not a problem with any revenue.
Okay, so how much, what do you think the dollar amount would be for that, Larry? Per year, you know?
I don't know for sure because I don't know what the expenditure or what water usage for the AgCom was last year. Nor do I know what the cemetery is.
There are no sprinklers, Larry, going on down there. They fill up a water can or a milk jug.
Understand, but they also, when they turned on the water, they had 4 service line leaks and 6 water spigot leaks. And I have pictures showing that he lost at least 560 gallons or so. That the cemetery is not being billed for.
Okay, so,
They
There
had,
is water usage, even if it is, little buckets and whatever. I mean, it's up to you.
I know it's 560 gallons is, what is it, what's the rate? What would that equate to, everybody?
We lost over $4,000 in revenue due to the leaks at the cemetery last week.
because the lines were not blown out last fall. They were shut off, but they did not get blown out.
So we lost
The water
4,000.
department always
Yes.
came along with a compressor and blew them out previously.
Okay, so there was a leak, and because of the leak, it caused a $4,000 thing, but, so did they fix the leak as soon as they found out about it?
There were several leaks.
Yeah.
Like it's because of the winter.
All right.
Is it water department labor that was doing it?
Yeah, they always, the water department always came along and shut them off and blew them out. And I'm not pointing fingers, but somehow they did not get blown out. They were shut off, they didn't put the compressor to them.
Well, what we've done with, I think the Ag Committee is we put a water meter on it just so we could tell whether there's a leak going on, because we had no way of finding out. Since it wasn't being billed, if you could look at the totalizer on a monthly basis, you could tell whether it was leaking. I don't know if they have that arrangement for the common, what else is on free water?
Common landing,
Town landing
and the
is
cemetery.
cemetery. How about, is there any bubblers at the school or park or anything like that?
I don't.
Yeah. I don't know either, so.
I gave the water board a memo dated May 21st with an update on what occurred at the cemetery with the leaks. Gives you a breakdown, total gallons lost, revenue, labor, materials.
So the 4,000, what are the, $4,000 worth? Was it $4,000 or 4,000 gallons?
$4,000.
And how did you come to that figure?
We have to quantify any leaks in the system to include for our unaccounted for water at the end of the year. And you have to also put a dollar value to it. And it includes materials, labor, and actual loss of water. And that's what it makes up. That's all in the detailed in the memo I gave you on the 21st.
Okay, so you want a copy of that memo, Larry?
If possible, yes.
Okay.
I have one question. Jean Fischel, 916 Gable Street. It's regarding the bills, but it's not an issue for later. I was just checking over my bills in the last year or so, and I've noticed since Kennechuck took over the billing, some bills come and they're a 27-day period, then other bills will come and they're a 38-day period. And on the 38-day period, of course, I'm over gallons. And I was wondering why my bill was so high, so I figured out I'm using approximately the same amount of water per day, but because it's 38 days, now I'm over.
On the billing
on the
cycle.
billing. So I was wondering, is there any way we could look into that and see if they could do it on a more standard time, like 28 to 32 days, instead of, 27 days and 38 days and 28 days, 35 days? That's how it was going around.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question, Mrs. Petrillo.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, you think, oh my God, but when I calculated out to see how much water I was using per day, it was the same, it's just that there were more days, so the cost would go overcharged. And so for some people that is, going to be bad in their budget. And then I looked at the light bills too, and they seem to be going either 28, 29, 30, 31 days. I think it was one time it was 33 days.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they can average theirs, but it's an average of like 30 and a half days a month if you average it out on 365.
Yeah.
And I know some months are longer and some are shorter, but it shouldn't be 27 days and then 38 days.
Does the, I'm sorry, but does the power company have a floating rate for so many kilowatts used? Is that, Mr. Murray?
The reason is the discrepancy between the days, number of days in a month, is due to holidays and weekends. Those meters are read during the working day, during the week. We used to do it by hand, now we do it just right down the street, the water tower does the same thing. So if you wanted to get a 30-day cycle, and that day happened to fall on a holiday, you'd be paying time and a half to have those meters read.
Okay.
That's why you get the difference. In the end, it all comes out the same.
Yeah. But there's no different rates for different kilowatt usage for the power company, right?
No.
Okay, so it wouldn't come up with the power company.
There are different rate classes, but they're not different rates.
Right. So I can imagine, I'm sure Mary Beth could answer better than I could, because it's an operational thing. She has to send people out, and of course there's holidays, weekends, and things like that fall upon those days, and she's got to manage the people working for us. And
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. I understand holidays and long weekends and things like that. But when you go for such a long extra period of 38 days, so maybe, it's, who does the actual reading of the meters?
the water department.
The water department?
Yeah.
And then those are sent to the building?
Yeah, so is the policy, Mary Beth, of a billing cycle? The amount of gallons per billing cycle, or is it per 30 days?
So the water department bills monthly, and we read the meters on the last Wednesday of every month. Some months there are 4 weeks, and some months there are 5 weeks. So we break the year down into quarters. So in a quarter, there are 13 weeks. By doing that, we bill 12 water bills in the course of a year. So what happens is, and it's strictly based on calendar, since I've been here, we've been pretty much reading the water meters. It's on the schedule the last Wednesday of the month, no matter wherever that falls, the 4th week, the 3rd week, halfway through. But during that quarterly period, there are 2 days, there's a days that you're going to see 28. But it has nothing to do with because of a holiday or how we went out and read. It's just the number of days and where that day fell on that read cycle as compared to the month before. And you are going to see 34 and 35 days. It's not anything that we're doing. We're not doing this because we're not reading. It's strictly because of the calendar. I have had discussions with the management at Pennachuck about this. It's too complicated to try to do this. We would be actually having to send out more water bills than 12 a year if we were to keep it. If we said, okay, forget about monthly billing, we would have to change it to, all right, every 28 days. Every 28 days, no matter where that fell in the calendar, we'd read the meters and you'd get a bill, and then 28 days later. But it gets too complicated to do that. So this is a simplified way of reading it. But there's one month or so that you do have a read of 34, 35 days because of how it falls. And that could change from year to year, whether you have a leap year or not, or not.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to do that because this is the way it is, weekends come. But on one particular bill, I think it was this last year, it was from December of 22 all the way to January 29. I think the 38 days. So why was it there so early? I mean, is everybody on vacation? I don't know.
That particular time period, I think that because of where the holidays were falling, we needed to read the meters. If we had waited till January, it would have shown up on the other end. It would have been a shorter read period, and then it would have been. But we did around the holiday, and then we had a couple of storms that interfered with us ability to read the meters. So that may have affected at that time period with the holidays. And it might have been, I mean, I could look back for sure, but there could have been some people off. But we still weren't fully staffed at that time too. We only had the two full-time people still up in January. It wasn't until, December. It wasn't until January that we brought on board 2 more operators. So it could have had an effect on it.
But I just want you to be aware that people are being, because there's so many more days, the people are being affected in their water rate because now they're using over, and it's going to increase with the new restrictions, 3,000 gallons.
And that is the drawback of a block grade structure. That is the one problem with the system that we have. It's the tiered system, and that is the problem. The only issue of having that.
Okay, so I have a question. So is it the billing cycle, or is it a monthly basis? The cycle?
We call it monthly billing because everybody gets a water bill every month.
If it's a 38, month isn't 38 days, so if it's 38 days and she has a problem with that, can she file for an abatement to get into the lower rate, 0 to 3,000 gallon?
The abatement process is in place for leaks, not for adjusting water bills. It's just for leaks.
Okay, well.
Paul Gelman, 367 Weathersfield Street. I noticed the same thing as this lady that looked at my statement, that there were several days that were in the mid-30s, I think as high as 38 days. And I was thinking about this, when the rate structure changes to 2,000 gallons, on a 30-day month, that's about 100 gallons a day average. With everything computerized, it would be possible to set it so that if your average exceeds $100, 100 gallons a day, you would, does not exceed 100 gallons per day, you would have the 3,000 below rate. So even if you have a month of 38 days, but if your average was 100 gallons or less per day, you'd be at a lower rate. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Therefore, you wouldn't go into the higher rate. I think with computers today, that could be programmed to see what your daily average is, for no matter how many days there are in that month of that cycle. That's the thought.
Well, let's bring that up at the hearing. These are rate questions. Let's talk about that at the hearing, and let's finish up our meeting. So, and that's a good question. I'm not sure if anything can be done. Something that can be looked into. I mean, right now, well, you know, look at that again. If you could bring that up again at the during the hearing. Next order of business is. There's no questions anymore in the citizens' query. The citizen query is now closed. Old business purchasing policy, discuss and vote on policy. You want to bring up, would you like to discuss the policy, Miss Mary Beth?
I'm sorry?
You want us to discuss the purchasing policy?
Yeah, the Water Board voted for purchasing policy to allow the superintendent to sign purchase orders $800 and less, and everything over required the signature of, over 800 required the signature of 2 water commissioners. So in your packet you have, what I did was I made a list of reoccurring bills that are generally over $800, that it's not something that I'm actually buying. It's paying a bill, the electric bill, the phone bill, chemicals, propane, natural gas, the internet, office phone bill, copier maintenance contracts, and gasoline. These aren't things that I'm purchasing. These are bills we get for our utilities and such. So I was asking the board if they would have vote on exemptions to the policy so that we can continue to conduct business and pay the bills.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming that what you'd like to be able to do is some of these recurring costs during the year that are normal in the operation that would exceed that dollar amount, that you'd have the authorization to sign it without a purchase order?
Without the Water Board signature.
Okay.
Purchases over 800 that are specifically listed in the policy I drafted up.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw that.
That's what I was asking.
I mentioned that a couple of meetings ago, such as fixed cost, for example, chemicals. If you need them, you need them. You can't wait for 2 signatures.
Okay.
I suggested chemicals, for instance, be exempt.
Yeah.
So the reason I did this is because I wanted to have the board approve a list so that I didn't have to guess, or I was signing something over 800 and then the board comes back and said, well, you shouldn't have signed, you weren't authorized for that, so that we're all on the same page. It's the reoccurring bills, thank you, Stu, that come in every month. It's not something I purchase, it's stuff that comes in every month.
Well,
Absolutely. Put up to 1,000.
I would like to have a blanket PO for those items on that thing. So we have a tracking device. You see, we're not going over our budget, so we have a blanket PO to cover all the power bills, all the chemical bills, things like that.
A blanket PO for our system wouldn't work. It's a 3-page carbon copy. It goes nowhere. It doesn't go in a computer. If we had a computer software programming, like the SoftWrite, and I did a blanket purchase order for $50,000 for chlorine to a chemical company, in the computer, as you draw off that purchase order, it will take it out of the budget and it will take it out of, it will encumber it in the system. What we would have to do if I did a carbon copy purchase order, every time we ordered chemicals, somebody would have to remember to make a photocopy of that carbon copy to attach to the invoices every month. That's a lot of work and effort, and it's going to get missed. Somebody's going to miss it, somebody's going to have to go back, because we're going to have to do a lot of photocopying, because it only comes, so one copy goes with the bill for the record for the water department. The yellow copy I always give to the Board of Water Commissioners, and the pink copy is my copy for my record keeping.
Wouldn't, if you have an $800 PO signing limit, I guess that's what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't, when we sign the warrant, wouldn't we see that detail there?
You would.
So there's a check and balance there.
But when we sign the check warrants, Sean, we don't see what where we are on the budget.
Well, that's what we'd be looking to during you get the budgets monthly, I believe, right?
You have it in your packet. I give you the budget monthly from the town account.
The detail on those budgets that were presented doesn't have the detailed expenditures.
I'd say with, similar to two other boards that I'm on, we get, for example, the library, we get a summary, and we go through the director's report, which is something we should probably kind of think about, a director's report, but there's really where the, discussion of the details. So I mean, I would really support this, and then pursue a director's report that would say a performance against budget every meeting. And it's kind of how you run a business, but I know this isn't a business. However, I mean, that's the controls that I'd want to see.
So how would that work now, when we get a check warrant that's presented to us, we look at a particular expenditure and it's got a code on there that we're not familiar with, but we have to look up that code and then kind of go through and try to figure out how much was spent on underneath that code is number?
There has to be some trust, everyday expenses. That normal things, as I said a few minutes ago, and I said it probably a month ago, are exempt.
You see what I'm talking about? Have you signed a check warrant yet?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And not just for the board, the water board. I've signed multiple others, and I do it every 2 weeks. I do payroll 1 week, the warrant the other. And I think to what Stu says, that kind of goes back to one water meeting before that I was here. And the superintendent kind of runs the day-to-day things. We oversee it. We make sure that we like what we're seeing. But an accountant at heart, I look at the numbers. I run by the numbers. And I would want, again, back to a director's report, to be able to say, okay, here's the 4 warrants we did, here's that, and performance against budget. That's really, how I've managed businesses, and also the other departments, is performance against budget. So you've got 50,000 in the chemical bill, and then we're 1/12 into fiscal year 15. I'd expect, Mary Beth, tell me if I'm right or wrong here, about 1/12 of it to be spent. And if it was varying, that would be something would jump right out, and I'd say, why? And then you'd tell us, because the truck tipped over on the rocky road, and we've got to get 10 more barrels of stuff, whatever. So that's kind of the way I think it would.
Bought it near the end of the month, so more on that bill, and next month it would be less.
Well, I had given a memo to the board about 2 months ago. I'll reintroduce that again. That's why I'm asking for more accounting checks and balances.
I think the checks and balances that we have and can use with the director's report would suffice. And is that the one that was looking for 250? I think it was on your, no? Did I get that last meeting?
I don't know.
But I believe it was, but I think this is...
Yeah, there were several codes that we look at on the expense check warrant, and some of those items I cross-correlated to our budget. They didn't match. So.
Okay. Then if they don't match, I think then that's...
But they're not going to match because we have the Peachtree system. In your packet, you have the level of detail report on the expenditures that we are capable of generating from the Peachtree system. The other document that's in your packet is directly from the town accountant. It is the official report on the water department. If anybody has any questions about this budget, you can certainly go and see the town accountant and check with her on this. This is not something that the water department does. This is something that the town accountant does.
Okay, let's move on here right now. So we got a purchasing policy, discuss and vote on policy. So I'm looking for the policy.
What's that, Tim?
Where's the policy? Okay, so these are items out of, you saying this, John?
Yeah, I got it right.
So we had a motion
For the
to
800?
accept that.
Yeah, just let me get it in front of me before I make the motion. Just digging through my packet. So I make a motion that we accept the purchasing policy as proposed by the water superintendent to authorize to purchase items at $800. All purchases greater than 800 would require 2 commissioners' signatures.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's exactly what I meant. Everyday expenses.
Okay, next item is vehicle discussion, bids, spec, and trade of the F350.
To be honest with you, this may take a little time. We have a hearing starting in 6 minutes. Can we put that off, Mr. Chairman?
You want to put it off? Okay.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Well,
What's the next
for
item?
the hearing, John. This may
Yeah.
take a little time.
Water treatment plant issues. We'll table that to the next meeting. Water treatment plant issues. I think we can table that. Is there anything pressing that?
I gave the water board for the last May 19th meeting that was in your packet. There was some issues with the treatment plant that the board didn't address or discuss. It's your call if you'd like to table it.
Is it going to be a problem if we table it till next meeting?
Condensation issue? Was that the condensation?
It's your decision, Chairman.
Okay.
Something else, some of the mold's coming in.
Oh, yeah. Wait, Beth, was that the molding and the condensation? Is that the molding and the condensation issues?
In the lawsuit. In the lawsuit.
I think that's going to take a while, so we'll table it again. Water treatment plant issues, we'll table that?
Are you tabling the truck as well?
Yes.
Yes.
We could hold a hearing and kind of go back into these things after the hearing. You want to do that?
Gone what time it is?
Yeah, as long as we have.
Okay. Water conservation and drought management plan, discuss and vote on policy. Have you folks read on that?
No, the grub treatment? No.
No, the water conservation and drought management plan.
Number 4.
No, I've got the old agenda.
That was pretty straightforward, wasn't it, Mary Beth?
Yes, currently we're in the middle of a mandatory water ban, and I just need the water board to officially vote on that.
Okay, so do we have a motion that we vote on the water ban
I'll
based
make
on
the
our
motion.
policy?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Community gardens? Can that be handled quickly?
We
got 5 minutes.
Yeah, we had an appointment with the Agriculture Commission on the meeting on the 5/19 to discuss their water setup. I gave the water board a memo regarding the situation. I don't know if the board discussed it. I wasn't there. But there's some serious situation over there. They need to put in a permanent service. They need, they can acquire funds to do so. There's grant monies available, but that service, I don't know if you've taken a look over there. That's a trip hazard. You have a water meter that's laying on the ground, and we tie up a fire hydrant for fire protection for the summer season, and it's piping that's laying up on the ground. So it's a cross connection. So they need to to look at that and come up with a permanent solution.
So as I recall, they were going to put in a pit and for a meter, and that hasn't been done yet?
What would need to be done is we would have to tap the water main because of the length of the service. I think it's almost maybe 900 feet. They would be required to put in a 2-inch water service with a 2-inch meter and a 2-inch water meter pit out back to the garden. That is to the Raleigh Water Department standard specifications for installation of a water service.
So this is what was the purpose of that policy? Was it based on a commercial use, or was it? Do they have enough water to use for the gardens now with what they have?
They do, but it's not about the amount of water. It's the standard specification that has been the Raleigh Water Department rules of regulation and bylaws on standard installation for new services, which is anything over 100 feet, regardless of quantity. It doesn't take into quantity into account. Anything over 100 feet for a service requires a meter pit. And then due to the length of the run, it needs to be at least an inch and a half service.
Yeah, but the board already voted on that as far as, and it wasn't completed as desired by the board last year.
And what did so what did the board vote on last year?
I don't know, we'd have to look into the notes. What do you recall?
We voted last year to, with the community gardens, have that line in there. In fact, we supplied the pipe, and last July, it was all arranged. The men were standing down there. You weren't here yet. And they were ready to tap into the main, so it wouldn't be hooked into the hydrant. And one man was going on vacation, and so they decided to wait until he came back from vacation. And for one reason or another, it did not get done.
Okay, well, I would advise the board to reconsider that vote. Who's going to pay for the tap and sleeve? That's a pretty expensive piece of equipment. I would advise the board to reconsider how we go about helping and assisting with getting this main. The Agricultural Commission can apply for grant monies to look into this, but I believe that you cannot use enterprise fund money to fund a town department's project. So I would advise the board to reconsider that for a vote for a later date.
I think
for a later date, I would like to give the community gardens a chance to apply for a grant and leave that line as it is for now, for this year.
No, they have water.
So you have June, July, and August.
They have a temporary service, but that it is my recommendation that we look into, and I can assist you, with applying for grant monies to have a permanent solution for that service. And I can offer consultation.
Given that the water line piping is donated by the water department, and it may not be standard for house or commercial use, would we have to replace the whole?
You need to tap the water main.
Right, but I'm saying the whole run all the way up from Main Street all the way up.
When we voted, you correct me if I'm wrong, it was for you folks to use watering cans down there. You're not using sprinklers in there, right?
Correct. No.
So therefore, you're not using much water.
Hopefully not. It's metered, it was metered last year. We never got a reading. Nobody ever gave us a reading on it. We were supposed to see how much usage we did use last year. I asked Penn to give me a reading. They never did. I can check with them again whether we don't know whether that meter, if it was zeroed out when it was first put in last year. It's the same meter. And I don't know, hopefully they got a reading this time around too.
We'll be able to give you a reading this time because last year you were not set up in the system as an account. So the system didn't recognize your system.
I asked Penn to say, okay, let's say just for a scenario, if water meter's at 0. Give us a reading when you go hook it up now, give us a reading on what it is, so we have some idea of the water use, hopefully it's not, I don't know.
We're reading it now because now it's, we've had you fill out the application. You're in the system. So when we're out reading the meters on the last Wednesday of the month, your meter reading is being picked up. So we should.
And I think my bigger concern is that whole run, you know, we, the board, our board spent money to install it. The water board kindly only the pipe and fittings. No, it's already $2,000 less. At least, I don't know what piping costs.
Someday.
But the size of it is certainly adequate for the summer, you know, seasonal temp line. Maybe it's not, you know, certainly.
I could be wrong.
Housing development that's supposed to go in there.
I could be wrong, but I thought that they bought all the materials needed for that little job.
We paid for the ditch witch and installed.
Yeah, I'm talking materials, the piping, the
Right,
tap,
the water.
the pit, stuff like that. So I don't know, were you aware that they bought everything?
We've gone through that garage cleaning and reorganizing,
Yeah.
and I don't see a 1-inch tap or
Okay,
anything.
so we've lost,
We have all the fittings, whether we have the stuff to do with tap.
I don't know, so. He may have left them down there with, your organization, but we got to open up a hearing now.
Right.
So if you could find out what there might be for equipment that was down there and get back to the superintendent, I think that might be a good suggestion to start. And also maybe you could bring it up to the next meeting,
Okay,
you know, and then maybe continue the discussion.
okay.
Okay.
Someday, if they ever develop down there, some of that land, the
Well,
builder would
there's
have
supposed to be
to,
about affordable housing unit going in. and,
the builder would have to put the water line in.
That was going to have a regular
main.
housing water service, but that's been years in the making. No, haven't happened, so. And we were tapping the house for a long time for the house sold. We were tapping the well there, so.
Well, there was a particular meeting that we, can you look into that, Stu? There was a particular meeting that we voted on, so it'd be some kind of expenses from that particular meeting.
It was sometime in April.
Was it?
In our minutes, it just says April. so
Okay.
keep your specific date.
Then
A
we
year ago, last
George-
April.
Yeah, April a year ago, George was saying that.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll continue on. If you could find out what you know, more information, and then find out from the superintendent any other thing that she may find out, and then we'll continue it in the next meeting.
Okay.
And we're not going to table these other items. We'll just pick them up after the hearing. Just 3 more items.
Depends on the time.
Okay, so it's 7 p.m. The hearing is open at 7:05 right now, and this is the informational session on water rate increases effective July 1st, 2015. There were several emails, and Superintendent, would you please read it into the record, these emails that came in, just to get everybody to see what everybody else has been requesting?
This email I received from a resident, June, I apologize if I missay the word, your last name, June Scusa. I'm writing to express concern over the $20 administrative fee that I recently was notified about in my current water bill. I did call Raleigh Water Department today and ended up getting a customer service representative from Pennachuck. I asked him to document my complaint, and he mentioned others have called to complain. While $20 doesn't sound like much, it's almost 50% increase to my current bill. From the Pennachuck representative, he stated the administrative fee was decided upon from a cost of service study last year, and this increase is needed to maintain the water supply in Raleigh. Was this ever brought up at a town meeting? Was there other notification about this at any other time in the town of Raleigh, other than the notice I received in my last bill? I am upset at this increase and would appreciate the opportunity to voice my concerns through the proper channels. I appreciate your time in reading my email and hearing my concerns. Please let me know who else might need to contact about this. Thank you, June Scusa, Raleigh resident. Did you, Chairman Toomey, did you want me to read them all?
Yes, please.
I received this email from Bob Brodsky. Hello, Mary Beth. The Raleigh Municipal Water Department cannot escape taxpayers' perception that the department serves its own interests first and those of its customers only sometimes. The last communication about the new rates is an example of this sidetrack. The wording of this document is unthinking and unusually cruel. I have nothing against paying good salaries and wages, but with those comes an obligation to treat customers with information and courtesy and to prove to us that you are trying to provide a service at a cost that everyone can afford. Don't you realize that when you tack the $20 monthly fee on every water meter, you are seriously impacting numerous users for whom $20 is a week's food budget, especially the elderly? The department was created to provide reliable potable water through its wells and piping. It has increasingly failed to do this. Ask customers if they drink Raleigh municipal water. You will be surprised at how many customers don't any longer. It used to be that we would get Commonwealth warnings about contaminants in our water. Now we get surges in chlorine and excessive amounts of brown staining chemicals. Customers deserve better. They deserve detailed answers to their questions. Years of excuses and blame-shifting replies have led many residents to disappear. Mary Beth, your plea at town meeting for road paving to a well was well heard as an example of muddled communication in our part of the hall. By the way, the selectmen's meeting for this afternoon posted on the Raleigh webpage, does not mention customers to speak. Bob Brodsky. There's a couple more.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the first to admit, I made the mistake. Mr. Toomey did not vote for it. Mr. Manning wasn't here. And we had two choices. Up the water rate substantially or the $20 fee. And I voted for the $20 fee in error, and I do not deny that. And it's my intention to roll that back and pay as you use. You don't, it's much fairer to somebody one or two in a home. They're not getting hit with that $20 fee if the main water bill was only $30. If somebody wants to use their sprinklers and so forth, to pay more, so you pay as you use. It's much fairer.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Are you saying that we would only incur a meter fee if we use more water?
No. If we do away with a $20 fee, roll it back. Whatever you use for water, you pay. If you don't use much water, you pay less.
But the rates will rise.
But if you use sprinklers and so forth, and you go into the next tier, you'll pay more.
Well,
it's much fairer.
Mr. Dalzell, we're going to finish reading these memos that came in. Could you continue on? How many more are there?
Three.
Okay.
I'll read this one, it's short.
Would you like a break and maybe Mr. Manning could read a few?
Sure, that'd be very helpful.
You want to give him a long one?
Yeah, well, it's two long ones.
Okay, well, you split it.
I'll take it. Here, yes. Thank you, Mr. Manning.
Yep, this is another email from Robert Podolsky, pardon this pronunciation, Brodsky. Hi, Mary Beth. Something strikes me as amiss in the structure of the new water rates. The people who consume the least water are going to be charged at a higher rate than those who use the most. The posted rates hide this factor. I know everyone pays the lowest rates for the first 3,000 gallons and the highest rate for greater than 30,001 gallons. Here's my math. The increase from the old rate of 0.01491 for the first 4,000 gallons will rise 8.62% to 0.0167 for the first 3,000 gallons. The percentage increase for the next levels are 6.66% and 4.08% over the old rate of 0.01791 for use all above 3,000 gallons. Why have the water commissioners structured a price break for those who use the most water? Seems to me the percentage increases should reward water conservation, not water usage. If water were in abundance, the percentage makes sense, but we need to conserve. Furthermore, the price increase structure not only rewards those who use the most water, but extracts a greater percentage of revenue increases for the water department from those on very limited fixed incomes. I would be sending this to the rest of the water board, yet I find the email address, I can't find their email addresses. And the second letter is from John is this?
Can we just read that one?
John Sikora?
Oh,
I think that was from another.
that must be, sorry, that's.
I have one from Brian DePersia. Is that the next one?
That sounds right, John.
Yeah, there was only 4, and this is the last one.
Okay.
This one's from Brian DePersia regarding the new administration fee. Hello, Mary Beth. I sat down last night to submit my water bill payment for the month and discovered the insert outlining the new water rates and administration fee. I want to express my concern as a resident of Raleigh over this admin fee. While I can understand an increase in the rates, the sudden addition of a $20 fee is quite shocking. In most cases, this fee will be nearly half my typical water bill. I could see a $5 fee, something more manageable, but a $20 fee not based on usage, that's harsh. I'm more than willing to pay for an increased rate based on my usage, which I have control over. The town should be promoting water conservation anyways. As I'm not able to attend the most recent Water Commission meeting, I viewed it on the Raleigh Media channel to see if there was citizen input. I'm clearly not alone in my opinion. While I understand some of the points and perspectives discussed in the meeting, some budgetary comments are questionable, and I would like to be more involved in future sessions. In the recording, there was a motion to hold a public meeting for citizens' feedback. When will that be scheduled? I wasn't able to find the meeting listed on the town website. That's it. Thank you, and I appreciate your time. Tim, that's all the letters.
Okay.
We have one more, Mr. Chairman.
One more? Okay.
This email is from William and Mary Gelly. Excuse me. This email is written to comment on the Water Commission's proposal for $20 a month assessment on all water meters beginning July 1st, 2015. The Daily News article on May 28, 2015 and the Water Commissioner's website indicate that the new water rate increases are due to operational costs for the treatment plant, which is understandable. However, the purpose of the additional $20 service fee base charge for all the water meters is unclear. If the money procured from the $20 service fee base charge is intended to also support the operation of the new water treatment plant, then the rates of all clients should be adjusted to reflect this needed income. Surely the water superintendent's concern regarding the $20 service fee base charge providing a steady stream of money to operate the new facility throughout the year can be administered by the water department through the collection of monthly adjusted rate fees. Therefore, adjusting the rates for all users as opposed to the $20 service fee base charge is appropriate. On the topic of electronic communication to and with the citizens of Raleigh, the websites for both the town and water department are inadequate. The town website linked to the water department brings up a page about water department, not the more informative website. Email communications with the individual board members to correspond about issues such as this are non-existent. Tonight's public hearing meeting notes that written comment will be accepted. How? Contact information on Water Department webpage is lacking email connections. Minutes regarding the Raleigh Board of Water Commissioners' most recent meeting, 5/19/2015, is not active. Layout of the webpage and links are tedious and not intuitive. We are sending this email to the town administrator and the water department email address with the hopes that it will reach the Raleigh Board of Water Commissioners for citizen comment. Thank you. William and Marion Kelly.
Okay. I think it merits our superintendent to go through, just for the record, how he came up with these rates and why. And I believe she could say it better than we could do that. So, Mary Beth, could you give an overview of how we came up with this rates? And
if it's okay with you, Chairman Toomey, I would like to ask Patrick O'Neill from Tater and Howard to come up and address the group regarding the rate study.
okay.
Patrick.
Gentlemen?
Absolutely.
Hi, how are you, Patrick?
Thank you, Pat.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Patrick O'Neill. I am with Tater and Howard Engineers, and we assisted the Water Board in completing the recent rate study. Just a little background. The water superintendent is licensed by the state of Massachusetts to operate your water system. In accordance with regulations 310 CMR 22 of the state of Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection guidelines and policies for public water systems. Between the two, it's about 500 pages of regulations for compliance of the water system. The mission statement for the regulations is 310 CMR 22 is intended to promote the public health and general welfare by preventing pollution and securing the sanitary protection of all such waters used as sources of water supply and ensuring that public water systems in Massachusetts provide to the users thereof water that is safe, fit, and pure to drink. That's a pretty tall task. In maintaining compliance, besides the daily compliance that the water superintendent has to do, reporting, annual reporting, water testing, Mass DEP comes in periodically every 2 to 3 years and does what is called a sanitary survey to find out if the water department is maintaining compliance. Within this survey, they look at staffing, operation and maintenance, and funding for operation and maintenance, water quality compliance sampling, all of the facilities, treatment plants, pumping stations, storage tanks, distribution maintenance, cross-connection control programs and the funding thereof, source protection, and managerial and financial commitment to maintaining the water department and the water system in accordance with regulations. Failure to operate the water system in accordance with regulations can result in non-compliance and fines. The superintendent, who we have assisted in developing the budget going forward, has presented a budget to maintain compliance and deliver to you, the customers, in accordance with the regulations. Unfortunately, a major part of that budget is your new water treatment plant, representing about 40% of the budget, which is very high. But even with that, you can't sacrifice the rest of the operations because you have the water treatment plant to fund. So you still have to maintain all the other compliance as well as operate and maintain the water treatment plant. So how do you fund this? The budget for FY16 is about $2.75 million. There's a multitude of ways to do funding. The revenue models, as just the comments you've heard tonight, can vary across the lot. The first thing we looked at is, okay, put on the water rates. Well, you're looking at a 34% increase in the water rates to generate the revenue to support the budget. That's pretty drastic. In my town, water rates doubled when we built the water treatment plant. And it's not unusual for many towns that are facing the issue of water quality and having to build treatment to face this issue. It's just tougher on communities with a small user group to support that investment. So we looked at having it all on the rates. Well, what happens when you raise the rates is people conserve. I do it, and I'm sure you would too. So then that conservation reduces revenue. You have the other problem where if it's a rainy season all summer, people use less water and you have less revenue. Well, the cost is the same. So you try to develop a revenue model to balance between conservation, the weather, and still supporting the budget. So we looked at putting it all in a rate, some sort of base fee to provide a base revenue in support of the budget. We looked at $10 and ended up with $20. It ends up being about $400,000 a year, or 16% of the budget. It could have been anything in between. We felt that was a good base. It ends up producing a 12% rate increase. If there is still conservation at that point, then you would still have a revenue deficit. But the feeling was at 34% rate increase, there would be a drastic reduction through conservation and a bigger deficit potential at the end of the year due to that. So the revenue model can be, like I said, a multitude of avenues. I guess I defer to the board on, based on your comments, how you want to structure it going forward. Take questions through the board if he chooses to do so.
So does that mean every resident in town is committed to spending $250 a year or $240 a year then? I mean, what you're saying is instead of losing money, we're going to slap every homeowner or every meter owner with a $240 per year fee. That's $2,400 a year. That's $240 a year, $2,400 over 10 years. So what you're saying is you think it's legitimate to charge some people who are just struggling to be in town and stay there and pay their bills and their taxes and buy food. That now they're being forced, they should be forced to pay $244 a year within town and drink water. That's what you're saying.
I don't know if there was a question there, but it is a method to generate revenue. There are upwards of $1,800. $20 a month is $240 a year. Yes. There are water accounts that pay less than $20 a month through the billing cycle. Not that that's fair to the rest of the people that are supporting it through the rates.
Excuse me, Bobby.
Yeah?
It's this board's intention to roll back that $20 fee.
It's okay. I'm just worried about all the utilities in town, because all of a sudden this year, the electric utilities and the water department utilities are shoving fees down the taxpayers' mouths. If you look at your electric bill, we have a new fee. Who's to say that's going to stay at the $5 rate? And fees to me is something that corporate America has been shoving down people's throats for the last 20 years. And all of a sudden, these corporate fees structures are hitting the townspeople and the taxpayers. And all of a sudden, the Raleigh utilities, both the electric light company and the water department, has decided, oh, we have a new way of raising funds of revenue. We're going to put on a new fee. And then all of a sudden, we'll live with the new fee, and then a year later, the rates are gonna go up. Because fees are just a hidden way to tax people. Just charge people for what they use, both for the water and the electric. Because I think the townspeople should stand up to both utilities and say, no fees in Rowley. We pay enough fees to the court, to our cell phones, to our cable companies, to this and that, and all of a sudden, our great small town we live in, our utilities have decided, oh, we're gonna start charging you fees now. I'm fed up with it. I'm sorry at all.
Okay, question in the corner.
Bob,
Bob, the gentleman before you.
I want to submit to the entire room that according to what this gentleman just said, and this is no offense to you, this is a no-win situation for everyone. Because if they eliminate the fee, our rates are going up. If we conserve water, there isn't going to be enough funding to run this plant. And they're going to have to jack the rates even more. And what really frustrates a lot of people that I've spoken to in town is this is a direct result of those two individuals who were gutting deer in that well house. If that had not happened, if that had not all come down, we would not have had to build this $12 million facility that we were not told what the price was going to be on it. And in turn, it's a perpetuating fine. We were told it was a $25,000 fine to deal with these two individuals. When in reality, it's a $12 million, $25,000 fine. And then on top of that, it keeps perpetuating because every so many years we have to replace the filters. Every year we have to supply all the chemicals to run this plant. It's a perpetuating fine that keeps hitting the people of the town. And that's not fair. And part of this is devaluing everyone's property. Because now, with the tax rates the way they are, and then the water rates going up, and the electric rates going up, your house is only worth what people are willing to pay for it if you try to sell and get out of town. And when people see those rates, they're going to start looking at properties and going, and no, it's cheaper over here. And that's difficult.
Well, let me just respond if I could. I don't think it's a direct result of those two individuals we had working for us. It was a matter of the manganese was increasing with time and the production of water on that well field. And because of that, they had to add more and more chlorine to it. And the chlorine became less and less effective because the manganese and the iron was so high that it wasn't really being an effective way to treat it. So, unfortunately, that was the deciding factor whether or not to pursue, and get the best possible deal to put a treatment plan in. And that's what this board did. And that's what the town did because of the manganese. And everybody in this board has the same pain as you folks out in the audience have. We're trying to do the best we can at the least amount of cost. We're trying, our goal here is to have safe, drinkable water and at a cheap price. And that's what we hope to do. Things have escalated. We have the treatment plant now. We need to operate it. And we weren't sure what the operating cost was, and so we're still not really sure. We don't really have enough history right now to say what the operating cost of that plant is.
How could you not know the operating cost before you built a $12 million facility?
Well, right, yeah. So, we had a guesstimate, but we didn't know exactly how it was going to operate. We had some debates about what was the power consumption. And there was a whole gambit of things.
Some of you folks were at the town meeting. It started out at $6 or $7 million. Then it jumped to $9 million. Then it jumped to 12.3. And I was on the Board of Selectmen, and we did not like it one bit better than you folks.
Yeah. So we were able to acquire a very, very handsome grant rate. And so that went in our favor. But we did have to construct a plant.
Where did it come from, sir?
It's a state fund, state revolving fund.
So it basically came out of our pockets.
Well, yeah, they're lending us the money, and very good rate.
Go from $6 million to $12 million. I guess that's
Well, I had the same question. When they guesstimated the price of what the plant should cost, based on what they knew from similar projects in the area, things had bumped up in that short amount of time. All the government projects kind of bumped up to I don't know why, but during the time that 2009 occurred and everything else, the quotes were starting to escalate. They were coming in 25% more. So this is what was told to me. So when they guesstimated it was a $7 million thing, we put it out for bid, and it came in around 9, okay? And the other $2 million was for the design, construction, oversight. So it was really a $9 million project that went to $12 million. And
who oversaw the management of that project?
Weston and Sampson. Okay. So we hired a qualified firm to do that, and so this thing escalated. So it came out to be $12 million. The state lent the town the $12 million to fund the project, and here we are today. We have the approximate amount of money we spend on a yearly basis in the budget to maintain that bond is how much, Mary Beth? It's about $460 or something like that?
In the operating budget, it's principal and interest payment only on a loan. It's a 20-year SRF loan. We've already paid 2 years on it, so we're in year 18. And in the budget, we carry about a little over $800,000 is what it costs for the debt on the loan.
So,
and Chairman Toomey, if I might comment, it's my understanding that some of the overages that occurred during the project, anytime you have changes and increases in a project, comes with change orders. There were several change orders in the project due to lack of design. One of the change orders I'm aware of, the engineering company forgot to include a septic system. We don't have municipal sewer. That was a pretty large septic system, so they had to go back in. So anytime you have to go back in, change plans, do a change order, another change order I'm aware of that increased the cost as part of that.
It's a design engineered project. Those aren't change orders because it forgot to add a septic system. It's a poor oversight. It's a poor engineer. It's a piss poor project.
The engineer should have paid for this. That's right.
And let's call a spade a spade. We're here paying for the piss poor oversight of a project that was estimated at $6 million and ended up at $12 million because of change orders.
And for the record, I was not involved with the project. No, I know.
well, I'll have to add to that. It's my understanding that when the contract is awarded, the SRF requires the people that have the loan to have a 5%, call it a fudge fee for overages on the project. They expect that 5% of that project will be somewhat not under-designed, or they forgot about this or whatever. So we were fortunate to have that. We didn't get to the 5%. I think we were around 3% on all the overages for that construction project. So it was relatively a very successful project to get that thing completed. But still, you got the main point here is you have 1,700 or 1,840 customers having to pay $12 million for a treatment plant. And so if we had 17,000 customers, it'd be a lot less, okay? But we have a small community that's got to pay this great big fee for a treatment plant that's required with the regulations. And it doesn't make anybody happy on this board. It had to be done, and we're there. We have the thing producing water. And now we're trying to, fine-tune the operation of it. So, I mean, I'm not going to say any more than that, but do we have any more questions?
Yeah. The most equitable thing is to raise the rate of the water, because it's not like gasoline, this stuff you can drink.
Yeah.
Another thing, there are some meters in this town
that multiple households want. And they're only gonna get $20 for the 1 meter. Not like everybody else. If you got one meter in your house, you pay $20.
Yeah.
Some of this town has multiple households on 1 meter, so they'll split the cost. One other thing, this manganese stuff is one of the reasons I had to quit drinking this water, because I got kidney stones that are manganese.
Really?
It's definitely no fun.
So you get less manganese so you can drink the water now?
Don't that. There's still plenty of iron, because it shows up.
Really?
Every morning.
Yeah. Well, then we get the data that says that we're removing, how many percentage of manganese we removing with that treatment?
I don't have the data in front of me.
Yeah, so we're removing quite a bit of manganese, so we're able to do that, and thank God we, you know.
Still, the most memorable thing is the rate, not this $20.
So you're first in line to vote that we don't want the $20 fee, okay, so, anybody? Oh.
So you said you're going to roll back the $20 fee. Is that, so it's not going to get implemented at all? Or how does that take effect?
It'll take effect, so we voted at the next meeting. It'll take it was to go in effect in July. It won't go into effect.
How many votes will there be for
Oh,
that?
yeah.
What's that?
To roll it back?
I believe it'll be unanimous from this board.
But the rates will rise.
That's okay.
Yeah. You pay as you use.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you use it, you pay for it.
That's
Right.
the fairest way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm new to Raleigh. I moved here from Medea back in December and was quite floored to see my first water bill. I was instructed to enjoy not having a sewer charge anymore because I had a septic tank that I would have a decreased water bill, and my water bill is not decreased at all. The rate that we pay in Raleigh, even before this increase, is outrageous.
Yeah.
And I did some comparisons around surrounding communities. Our water rate in Raleigh is 317% more than what they pay in Georgetown. 317% more than what they pay next door in Georgetown. Members of Newburyport, we are paying 263% more
Then Newburyport?
than Newburyport.
Yeah.
And we are paying 150% more than what they're paying in Amesbury.
Yeah, I can't make you feel comfortable on it. You have 1,700, 1,800 customers.
Also other small communities.
Yeah, but Amesbury and Newburyport is very large, so they have a lot of people to spread out the rate on. So.
I'm wondering, I saw a survey back in 2012 that shows only 7% of towns in Massachusetts do monthly billing. And I bet we could save a lot of money by doing quarterly billing or biannual billing of this water bill, not paying someone every month to come to our house and be our meter and send us a bill every month.
Well, we looked at that. The other thing is that if you do quarterly billing, the bill is so large that, you know, somebody may not have budgeted for that. So it's just, that's why we went to monthly billing.
Which is a small percentage, I can't, of towns that bill monthly like that. There's got to be some.
Well, we used to do bi-yearly,
Yeah.
but now that the operating budget's so large that they went to monthly.
Is Pennachuck expensive to work with? Is it better off having the town bill itself somehow to save water?
I don't think so, but Mary Beth, could you answer that?
The contract we have with Pennachuck Corporation for customer service and billing is only $58,000 a year. They provide us with, you're calling a call center, so I don't know how many they have. They could have 50 people in there. So when you call, you're getting somebody that can assist you with your questions. Right now, if you call the water department, you're going to get me and only me. I can't process 1,861 bills, manually deposit all those checks as they come in at the bank. And if we were going to bring it in-house, we would have to hire more people. I can't handle the load as it is right now myself without processing bills. So it would cost the water department more money because we'd have to not just pay the salaries, but you have to pay the insurances, the vacation, everything that goes along that you don't see, that goes along with having a full-time employee. So that's a big bang for the buck right there, is that $58,000.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in. Mass DEP at this point is pushing for all water systems to bill on a monthly basis. Most do bill biannually, maybe commercials quarterly. But if you look at the regulations and the new water management permit conditions that are coming out, and permitting is being renewed as we speak across the state. Your permit in Raleigh comes up in 2017. Down in the southeast where I'm from, they're permitting now, and one of the conservation conditions they want in the new permit is monthly billing. So the state is pushing for that, so Raleigh's kind of ahead of the curve as far as that goes. So.
I have a question, and having seen the water treatment plant, which was beautiful, I enjoyed it very much. But is there any way to generate revenue from the manganese that's being piled up in the iron? Is there any manufacturing that would require buying that? So you might have to purchase it from some other vendor?
Well, that's an interesting question too. I mean, I'm sure Mary Beth would have an answer for that too, but you're having trouble.
The operator said that it's starting to pile up.
Yeah, I handle disposal a lot of times, and sometimes the metals are so rare that you can ship them to Canada and make some money on it. But I don't know. It's maybe something we could look into, see if there's a market for manganese. So, what are your feelings, Ms. Weiser?
Well, currently right now we do have a residuals management program where it's going into the lagoons and the drying beds, and then we have to pay to haul it away.
Some manufacturing.
Not that I know of.
That could use it in some.
Yeah, not that I.
It's probably hazmat. It's been processed with chemicals.
Yeah, it's probably considered hazardous because we have to test for heavy metals in order for us to properly dispose of it. We have to do lab tests and
Well, it has other metals in there, so this process doesn't only take out manganese.
There's aluminum. There's also aluminum mixed in with this with the treatment plant. So what happens is when we treat it, we added the chemical we add for coagulation to help with the removal process has aluminum in it. So that's mixed in with all of that sludge that's going into the drying beds. So.
Could I jump in, Mr. Chairman?
Send it into another business, they can use it, and get paid for it.
This is a common problem with all treatment plants. About the best solution that's come up so far is beneficial reuse. Some agricultural facilities have permits to accept sludge of various types, but as Superintendent Weiser said, it has to be tested and meet standards in order to be used on fields as far as soil replenishment. So they're not buying it from you. The only thing it does is reduce your disposal cost a little bit, but it is an option.
I mean, I know they sell the sewer stuff. The sewer stuff is what goes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this may have already been answered. What's the term on big projects in terms of paying back? How many years is it?
It's a 20-year thing. And as Mary Beth said, we are already 2 years into it, so it's 18 years left.
The interest of the fact is people I know that when they live close to the treatment plant, they're saying that the water has a lot of coming and takes off. Is there any fix for that, or is it just,
I don't know, Mary Beth, have you got any complaints?
Yes, that is the #1 complaint we receive is chlorine, but the chlorine is in the water for your protection. We're required by the DEP to add chlorine to the water or some form of disinfectant, and it has to be measurable. So Raleigh has chosen to use liquid chlorine to disinfect the water. And so it's what's leaving the treatment plant is one part per million. It's really not a lot of chlorine, but what happens is that we have to make sure we're dosing enough chlorine at the treatment plant and at well number 2 so that there'll be some chlorine left at the farthest end of the system, because we're required to have a residual at the last tap on the system. So unfortunately, people that live closer to the treatment plant may experience, you know, it's not any more chlorine, it's the same amount, but there are some things you can do. If you want to give me a call at the water department, I can talk to you about some of the things that you could do. I did put some things on the webpage. I'm working on updating the webpage, making it more user-friendly for everybody, putting information. So I am trying to get some information on what you can do, a no-cost solution to, you know, at least try to do the, remove the chlorine. Because chlorine's naturally a gas, so it's, but it is in there, it's for public health, and I don't have a choice, I have to do it.
Okay.
On that, just a point of question there, doesn't everybody's water go from the treatment plant and the well up to the tank and then back to everybody?
The water that's in Raleigh, it's a mix. So if we're only running, some days we're only running well number 2. The water that's in the distribution system is well number 2. The tank is probably a blend of well number 2 and the treatment plant, which is treating wells 3 and the well field of well 5. So it's usually a blend. But both well number 2 and the treatment plant are dosing at a 1 ppm or 1 milligrams solution of chlorine.
I always imagine myself at the extreme low end of the east end of town, and when I get a lot of chlorine down there, I'm surprised to hear that people have to plant it way more.
Well, there are many things that would cause that. I mean, if you live on a dead end, which is the water main doesn't loop around, you might notice a taste and odor of chlorine. There are many things that affect why and where and how in a distribution system that you may or may not experience what appears to be like it's a lot of chlorine. We're going into the warmer temperatures. Temperature is a big factor in affecting how chlorine reacts in the water. So there are many things. You know, there's a chemistry aspect, it's a biological aspect happening with the water. So it's the same amount. We're not increasing it. It's the same amount.
I want to look back just to Mr. O'Neill and the long-term way of coming up with a fair way to pay for all of this. I think now we understand more what we're paying for, but it's how to pay for it. And I think my husband's letter about the rate increase going up proportionally for the smallest numbers of units differently than the greatest numbers of units is a reverse of what I think culturally Raleigh thinks of itself as doing, which is to reward the thrifty, to reward the consumers who are really trying hard to limit their bills and limit usage, and understanding that it's a rare and scarce resource in this town. And so what we want to, I think, feel is that instead of being surprised by an insert in our bill, finding a way to meet you guys all halfway so that we feel like instead of asking us for something, you're saying we've cut down our budget this way, this way, this way, we've cut things this way, we're suggesting long-term bonding this way. We're doing everything we can to incrementalize this over the next 20 years for those of you who are at a certain age and want to live here another 20 years until you die and want to figure out how to plan that. So I think that was the missing piece in the last couple of meetings, including the town meeting and the meeting on the 19th. They got all like that. And so my question is there no way to re-bond or bond differently incrementally these increases so that the bond can either go out 40 years or it can we can bond ourselves on top of the bond that already exists with 18 years left. We can borrow from the enterprise fund now, which is also our pool of money from way back when. I know it's a rainy day fund, but can it be borrowed again in a way that helps pay down some of these things? Even if it's paid down a big chunk down, have a smaller rainy day fund. I don't know where you find out, or if you guys can tell us how much is in the rainy day fund, if it can be used in that way, if there are other bond issues or grants or creative funding sources or I just read the Japanese system where towns have sugar daddies, basically people who love the town so much that rich people are allowed to give tax-deductible donations to their town. have we thought of some really creative ways of refunding, rebonding, revising, redistributing it? I think we're all interested in quality water and fair prices, and that some of the older and less able people in town can continue to live here for the rest of their lives. And if we don't think really creatively about how to do that, we're going to be losing a lot of the, not only the water resources, but the natural people resources that make for me, is part of the reason why I want to be here.
Mr. Chairman.
I'd like just to comment on that for a second. I thank you very much for your input. We have our budget development season starts, I think, in January. And if you might be interested in maybe getting involved at that time to maybe bring up some of those ideas to our committee, because I think that we've got to have some some other input from the people. We need some help. These people work hard on budgets, and if you have some bright ideas there, then maybe you could get involved by contacting the superintendent next January or February. You may get involved in those kind of discussions. I don't know if you'd be available for that, but I'm certainly the board might appreciate you getting more involved. So, yes.
Just a couple items on the study. We did look at, the limited areas we could within the revenue model to tweak. So part of that is the commitment services schedule for service connections, the town hydrant fee, and they were tweaked a little bit. With those tweaks, it's estimated to generate another $40,000 a year. That's not going to help you a lot, I'm sorry. But the best we could do with that part of it. We did restructure the rate tiers a little bit again, and that generated a little more revenue, but not enough to really make a big difference for you. The bonding, under SRF, they will only bond water projects 20 years. They'll bond sewer projects 30 years, and I don't really know why they're stuck in that mode. But that is DEP's policy on the bonding, because they, through the SRF program and the United States EPA, fund that, and that is their bonding schedule for water and wastewater projects. Again, we can make an inquiry and see if there's a rebonding alternative, I guess, for that, but I've never seen it done, and maybe we could work with the town finance director to see about your other question on bonding within the town or within the water department's bonding capacity to refinance. I can't really speak to how that would work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What is the life expectancy of this facility? When you have it paid off in 18 years, are our rates going to come back down in 18 years, which is consequently when I retire? Or are our rates going to stay the same and we're going to have to buy a new facility? And just real quick, you brought up the take from the rainy day fund. I don't think that would be possible, only because that was supposed to be, treatment plant was supposed to be paid for by the end user. That was brought up at the town meeting when they decided. Do we know what the lifespan is of the facility?
I could speak to just my experience. I wasn't the designer, but typically they're built with a 50-year design life. Not to say after 30, your maintenance costs aren't going up substantially. Pumps, motors, it's a lot of moving parts. But you build a facility, masonry, very durable structure. So it's 50 years, and then you're more into a maintenance mode. So.
Yeah, Bob.
I have another question as far as the funding goes. I know probably impossible, but is there any chance to have like a one-time override in town so that not only the homeowners but the landowners also have to share in the cost of this? Is there any possibility of that? And then also the CPC funds, we're putting streetlights on the town commons, which are costing, I don't know how much money. We're spending money on all these buildings. What's more community preservation than helping the people get reasonable cost drinking water? I mean, has anybody looked at using CPC funds?
You can't do that.
Mr.
Yeah, the Peters, the Board of Selectmen, the CPC funds are dedicated to recreation, historic preservation. There's 4 categories. You can't use it for water. Low-income housing, affordable housing. I forget what the other one is offhand, but none of them are really for water. Number 2, many years ago, 25, 30 years ago, this town voted to, we used to, originally the water system was paid entirely under the tax rate. Side of the town budget. At that time, I'm going to say it was back in the 80s probably, but I could be wrong on the timing, the town voted to go with enterprise fund. Under the state laws that establish enterprise funds, the water department is required to be entirely self-sufficient. The only time the town puts any money in is if at the end of the year there's not enough funds in the fees and the bills. The water department doesn't collect enough money to cover their expenses, then the state Department of Revenue requires the town taxpayers to make up the shortfall out of our free cash. So that means we cut back on fire services, police services, schools, or whatever else. We have to pay the water bill one way or the other. Under the enterprise fund, they're required to generate enough revenue to pay for their operating budget. And the only thing that happens is, what's happened this year, for instance, is a shortfall in revenue. Because the rates last year weren't put up high enough to generate enough income to cover their expenses. So we're looking at a shortfall for this year's budget. And maybe the rate should have gone up some last year to make less of whatever was done or wasn't done. So we have to generate rates, whether it's through the $20 fee or increase the cost per gallon, one way or the other. Water department is required, the town is required under the state law to generate enough income.
Right, but when the enterprise fund was started for the town, for the water department, the people in town didn't know they were going to be faced with the water rates that are 4 or 5 times that in most communities. Maybe it's a time we got away from the enterprise fund and went back to the town funding it and having the costs be spread not only to the homeowners but the landowners also, to bring the cost down for the people who are living here, because the land in Raleigh is what mostly buildable or a lot buildable, and by doing so, you're raising the values of everybody's building lots in town and open land. So I just feel the cost should be spread across the whole town, not only to the people who are using it, because this water treatment plant is, in the long run, going to make Raleigh a more desirable place to live.
Well, we established the enterprise fund, so it is what it is, and the way people use the water, have to pay for it. And yeah, none of us are happy about the cost, but that's, we're required to put the treatment plant in. And to give us clean water, we're making complaints about the water not being sufficiently clean. The state was in Texas, and they're the ones that water us, the water department, the town of Raleigh, that we have to treat the water somehow. So that's what the treatment plant came from. The cost of the year, it's like everything else. There's nothing going down, nothing going up. At this point, you have to either pay a $20 fee or raise that extra $400,000 to increase the rate. That's what the water will pay for under the enterprise fund system.
Okay, I think we have time for a few more questions so we can wrap this up. So,
All right, another question. We have this new water canal, which theoretically provides lots of water. You need to sell lots of product in order to pay for that. What are the other water resources?
yeah, good question. It's a state regulation. If the Parker River drops down below a certain flow,
20 cubic feet.
yeah, then you have to publicize or create a water ban situation in your to your customers. It's just it's a mandated law. Okay.
On the same vein there, with the water restrictions in place and with the anticipated increase in the rate of the water, people are going to conserve more and use less water.
Yeah.
Does the rate compensate for that?
Well-
the revenue's going to go down, and we're going to be in trouble next year.
I think our consultant could answer that a lot better than I could. I think they accommodate that when they generated their scenarios for rates.
How did you come up with the proposed rate for this fiscal year? Did you anticipate water bans and reduced usage because of the...
We used a usage rate, I think about 10% below what was the average of the last few years. In anticipation, there would be some drawback based on conservation.
So that was factored in?
Right.
I don't know what's appropriate at this point. Do we have, we as a board voted to put that surcharge on. What was the second scenario? It was table 2 or something like that? Mary Beth, do you want to go through that?
Yes, it was in the rate study, it was table 6A and table number 6C. So table 6A was what the town will pay for water rates, including the $20 monthly base charge. So less than 3,000 gallons, that was $16.17. 3,001 to 30,000 gallons will be $20.06. Greater than 30,001 gallons will be $22.30.
So
The other,
excuse me, but that was the next least hurtful rate?
this was the one that the water board had voted on, and I'll read the other one for the record. So the other one on table 6C that was presented was what the rate will be without the $20 base charge. So that would be $19.98, $24, and $26.68. But both of these that I just read pretty much add up to the same dollar amount, because that's, you know, what we need for the operating budget. So it's either with a base fee or without, but you're still, that's still that 400,000 plus is still is set into the rates.
So, excuse me, but there's 3 different rates, okay? Less than 3,000, 3,000, and 30,000, and greater than 30,000. So
Yes.
what are those rates, the next tier that we could go into? Waiving or getting rid of the...
$19.98, $24, and $26.68.
Okay. I'm sorry, you had a question?
I just had a question on that, because I did some calculations on that. Assuming that we're going to use the chart, table 6C, and when you take an average person, well, then I had 3 scenarios, an average 5,000 gallons per month, 4,000 gallons per month, and 3,000 gallons per month. I think most of the town, according to the report, use the 4,000 gallon range. If you take an average bill from what we're currently paying to what originally we had voted on, the bill would be $1,007.20 per year. If you hold the rate that you just mentioned there, that bill will now go to $1,081.92. I see that to be a $74 difference in revenue, which if you multiply it times 1,800 customers roughly, and these are just rough numbers, it appears to me in my calculations that you'll be short about $133,000 in revenue. So all I caution the board to do, or just for you to look at, is make sure that the revenues are equal, because I don't see them being equal, just bucketing the numbers according to the formulas that that's in the report.
Yeah, but what we don't know is, we don't know what the revenue is going to be, and we don't know what expenditures really are going to be. We might save money in expenditures, so.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, as a member of the finance committee, is that we want to make sure that the revenue is there for the pay the bill, so that we're not next year looking for a deficit of $350,000.
I think he could better answer that.
Since the hearing with the water commissioners, which is the basis of that table 6C, the superintendent with the town accountant, I think, tweaked some of the numbers, which are reflected in our report, but we didn't regenerate the rates based on the non-base fee that was presented in Table 6C from the meeting. So we will take a look at that again based on the last set of numbers that we got from the superintendent and the treasurer's office to make sure the revenue model is still correct.
That is very important. I mean, the rates are going to go up, but you just want to make sure that they're right where they should be.
Yeah.
They should be equal, like, you know, they're supposed to be.
Yeah, there were some slight tweaks in the budget line items between the meeting and then when the, our final report came out. So we'll verify those numbers before they meet and set the rates.
Okay. One more question.
Sure, quick question. When did the water treatment plant come online?
Last August 27th.
Excuse me?
Last August 27th.
So we have about a year of usage, changing filters, so on and so forth. So that's what you're basing your estimates on what it's going to cost to be increasing.
Mary Beth?
Is that correct?
The operating cost for the water plant, we're carrying $100,000 for the PAL membrane system alone. The annual maintenance contract for the PAL system is about $45,000 a year. That's for a 24-hour, 7 days a week coverage for technical support if we need some assistance. 4 visits a year to calibrate and go through the system and make sure that it's operational. Then we have for the treatment plant an additional $100,000 for maintenance costs for everything else. As Mr. O'Neill stated, there's an awful lot of moving parts. So it's not just buying chemicals. I have to stock spare parts so that when we have an emergency at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, we can go to our shelf, take what we need, fix it, keep the water flowing, and then restock the shelf at a later date to replenish it. The other cost that drove that up was the addition of 2 additional operators. That was something that came from the DEP within the last 3 to 4 months. When you build a treatment plant, normally staffing is a consideration and discussed. How much staffing, that was unclear to the water department at the time. But with working with the DEP, they've required 2 more people because right now, currently, as some of you may experience, we've been having some customer service issues because of lack of staffing. It's not because we're ignoring you. That's not what's happening. It's just we have emergencies come up, things happen, and there's so much going on in the water department and not enough people to do the work that things happen, unfortunately. So the DEP says can't operate that way. So we need to have 2 more people, and that was roughly about another 150. So the operating budget itself overall went up as far as the expense line, about $350,000. Most of the money in the budget for the water department was the debt services, which was most of it, and then you have your salary portion, the operating expense portion, and then the debt services. But that operating section, it's not a lot of money to operate, and that's for the entire department. It's not a lot in the big scheme.
So we have 9 months of real world numbers versus guesstimates.
We're getting there. It's going to take some time.
Right.
We need to go. We're not up 100% operational, so that's the other thing. For as far as electricity, I know that was a big topic of conversation for the board. I'm still not going to have real numbers on electricity because we're only running it for 8 hours. Because the DEP says that's all we can do right now because we're a 1-shift operation and we have to man the plant until they give us permission to go to the remote, what they call remote operations, which is allow us to have the SCADA system assist us with turning pumps on and off while we're not there so that we can do other things. The DEP, so we're only running it 8 hours. So the data we have is for an 8-hour shift. And so it's not going to be complete until I get that green light from the DEP and we go to 24-hour operations. So it's going to be a transition to get up there, but we're getting there. We're getting better numbers, for what it costs. And we can do some calculations and guess, but I'd rather not guess. I'd rather look at the facts.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Tim?
You,
Tim, who's one woman that's raised her hand 4 times?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
What would you like?
Just have one quick question.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
much money does the discount generate per month for people paying the bill on time and the discount?
How much money is the discount?
How much money how much revenue, or how much money?
Do we lose from giving discounts out?
Yes.
Okay. Can you answer that?
yes, I can.
Well, I can tell you from the rate study, we included $100,000 a year in the discounts. That's about 4% on the rate.
But I'm asking, what I'm getting at.
I'm not sure what the actual revenues are.
What I'm asking is the actual, and if you eliminated that discount, that's a chunk of money, isn't it?
Yes, it's about $10,000 to $12,000 a month in lost revenue to the water department due to the discount.
Right, so if you didn't have the discount, if you're trying to nickel and dime it to get it so it works, wouldn't that be a chunk of money in the end of the year that you would capture?
Maybe.
Now I'm gonna give up my discount.
I know, but
The rate?
I think maybe you could maybe bring this up at the budget meetings, maybe, that they have in January. Mr. Murray?
One thing you have to be careful with that type of scenario, you give them the discount to keep the cash flow. If you take away the discount, the cash flow can drop. You may not have enough money to make your bills, the payments for the month.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the discount. The cash comes in when you need it.
So the incentive is there to pay the bills so we can have a good cash flow and so on. Okay.
Are you going to have a vote on this, the rate as far as fixed cost versus full value of the rate? Because I think there's pros and cons on both sides. And I don't know. If you buy a car, just because you don't drive it that much doesn't mean that your cost is going to be much less. You still have fixed costs that you have to pay for. And so there are really 2 different ways of looking at this.
Yeah. Mary Beth?
When you're ready, you can close the hearing, and then the board, if wishes to discuss, but there'll be no more public comment, but the board can discuss this and vote if you want.
Okay, so there's no more questions. We're going to close the hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, Peter, but I'm not clear on your question.
My question was, are we going to have a vote on this fixed cost versus, paying flat, amount, $20, or we just going to decide that not doing enough?
We're going to change the rates to cover our budget. We're not going to do the $20 a month surcharge on everybody's bill. And so we're going to go into the next tier that was developed by Tate and Howard that cover for the rates to cover the budget. Does that answer your question, or?
Chairman Toomey?
Yeah, I thought maybe there would be if there's going to be a change like this, that it would be something that people would get to vote on.
no.
Not tonight.
No.
It's a public hearing as well. There's no public vote.
If I may, Chairman Toomey?
Ms. Weiser had something to add.
Just, well, for the record, okay, this isn't a vote that's going to go out to the community. The water board sets the water rates. So they are the ones who made this decision, chose this option with the base fee. What the board is going to discuss will be the options and what would be best, I would imagine, for the community. And they can do this after they close the public hearing. They can have a discussion.
We're going to take everybody's input and then incorporate that in our decision, I believe. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm sure my fellow board members will be looking at it too. So.
The idea of going, for instance, to the lowest tier, proportionally hitting it less hard than it's being hit now, harder than the upper tiers, wouldn't you have to recrunch those numbers and you consider rates that way? In other words, the 2 options before you right now seem to be the with the fee and without the fee more.
Right.
But there's a third option, I suggested, and a couple other people seem to be the same, which is shared, so unfortunately upside down from the way you're presenting it now. In other words, the higher users pay more per gallon, the lowest users pay least per gallon.
That's what's happening now.
No, 19.98 out of 3,000 gallons is the less is 0.0167, right?
I want to crunch the numbers. I mean,
In other words, we're going from 1491 for 4,000 gallons to 1670 for 3,000 gallons. So that's an 8% increase per gallon.
Well, last year was 14 something.
Yeah, 14.
The proposal was 16 or something. Now it's going to go to 19. Okay, for that lowest tier. And then the next tier will be, instead of this coming year 20, it'll go to $24
I guess
per
I'm
ton.
missing my math, but it seems to me the first tier is paying proportionally, is going up.
Oh, I know what
than each other tier.
I'm not sure what the logic is. We figured out, you can get more details on that. I think there's a lot more factors in it than just...
it's not a flat analysis. It's an incremental with the water rates and usage. It's a complex
One
formula.
more question, please.
One question, and maybe you can answer that question. My tribe that I developed just took what the rates are now, what they're paying now, and what they proposed based on the 1998. And the lower tier, the 3,000 gallon per month, is actually going to have an increase of a water bill of 34%. These 4,000 gallon per month user will have a 40.7% increase, and the 5,000 gallon per month will have a 39.19%. So the lower tier will get the lower increase, even though it looks like a little bit higher. But when you go to the next tier, the 3,000 to the 30, it goes to 24, and that is significantly more than the 1998. So when you do the numbers, you just plug in the numbers, it comes out that the lower tier gets the lower. It doesn't get whack as high as the highest. So they are cheaper.
And once again, the other thing is, what's the average bill? Is it in that middle tier? You know?
Most of the customers fall in the tier 1 category.
Tier 1? Okay.
Well, everybody gets it.
Mostly. So we don't, the tier 2 is usually like, industrial customers, the bigger, commercial business. And Raleigh just doesn't have a lot of commercial business that generates that kind of usage.
Okay, so I think we're going to close the hearing at this point. Thank you very much for your input from me and the fellow board members.
What's that?
Thank you, Pat.
Is there a break for that?
You want to take a break?
Just for a second, let people decide what they're doing.
I'd like to make a motion we adjourn.
I want to get those policies passed before you go sick leave.
He wants a couple more things before I leave.
Well, you know what? I left my house at 6 this morning, but I'm fried. I'm not going to be making good decisions. Okay?
Just make it quick right now.
The other thing too is to redo the rates. Will you both be at the next meeting? Or just say you're going to be?
Yeah.
Are you in Westwood?
Really,
Oh, okay. Oh, jeez. So can we do the rate change? It's just the two of us? Yeah. At the next meeting?
If we vote together,
Yeah, we're gonna get rid
But
of
what I want to do is I want to straighten out the communication policy. Now that I'm chairman, I want to be able to talk to her. I want you fellows to talk to her too, on an equal plane.
Well, let's bring it up now so we can get out of here. Like John said, he had a long day, you've had a long day, I've had a long day.
What Patrick was talking about,
We've already
I
talked
had
about
worked with Sue Bailey, town accountant, to try to make some
have the
changes.
policy in there?
So what you received, this was the draft.
Thanks.
Patrick just
Coming.
asked me
Did it matter?
to advise you not to make a decision until after he makes the changes to make sure that the model is still going to generate these numbers
So we're going to bring it up at the next meeting.
on the next meeting.
So he's got to get it together
He will.
for the next meeting.
He will.
So you can
He'll
present
have
it to
it
us.
before that.
Okay. Give it to us.
He'll have it as soon as I do.
We're going to continue our meeting.
Communication policy in this package?
That's what I gave you last meeting. This is what we're going to pass.
No, I don't know if I brought that package up.
Well, you got 300 pages here.
I know. So I asked is this package for this year?
Okay, so, excuse me, everyone. Hello? We're going to continue with our meeting, so we need some help here with... Thank you very much. Okay, so continuing on from our regular board meeting, cemetery leaks and repairs. We covered that already?
We did.
Okay. Communications policy, discuss and vote on policy. What I'd like to do is I'd like to put forward, I know Mary Beth worked on a lot of this work, but I'd like to put forward this for communications at this time.
Are you making a motion?
I'm going to make a motion that I, Timothy Toomey, move to rescind and replace the current policy described above with the following policy. On October 21st, 2014, the Raleigh Water Commissioners created a policy by a 2-to-1 vote intended to clarify communications on a meeting agenda is prepared. The following policy reads as follows. The agendas for all water board meetings are prepared by the chairman of the water board and the superintendent. If the commissioners want to discuss anything that is not above the agenda for that night, it needs to be on the agenda for the next meeting. Commissioners may contact the water superintendent with a topic for consideration for future meeting. Okay, so the motion I'm putting forward is to agenda items for all future and regular scheduled meetings of the Raleigh Water Board of Commissioners will be collectively determined by the members of the board present, while in open session by a vote by the board, just prior to the conclusion of every meeting. Okay, so prior to the conclusion of every meeting, we will come up with agenda items for the agenda.
For the next meeting, 2 weeks?
For the next meeting.
And what if we need something on the agenda between now and then?
Well, there's a provision in here for that. To ensure lawful and orderly utilization of this policy, it requires the adoption and implementation of the following subsections. When requesting that a certain topic or issue is placed in the future agendas, board members should only state the topic or issue without discussing it in any way. So we're not going to deliberate, talk about any of the topics. We're going to present it to at the board meeting, so it's totally transparent. Once all the topics or issues have been identified as agenda items will be discussed at the next regularly scheduled water board meeting, the board must vote to authorize the chairman to include them on the agenda for the next meeting. The chairman or his designee is responsible for the printing and distribution of the agenda, as well as posting all the relative opening meetings in accordance with all statutory requirements. Establishment of the agenda for the next regular scheduled meeting shall be standing agenda item, appear on every future agenda, and posted on every open meeting posting. If necessary, the chairman may include anticipated additional topics to agenda. However, such must be posted in accordance with the meeting law, and prior to the discussion of any such meeting, the chairman must explain the necessity of the inclusion of such an agenda item. And 6 on this motion is in the event of any kind of emergency meeting, the chairman or his or her designee can, should, and call and post the meeting agenda in accordance with the open meeting law. This is by me, and I'm going to sign it.
Can we discuss it first?
Well, yeah.
Chairman Toomey, in the communications policy that I wrote, it included communications for daily operation emergencies, and I didn't hear you talk about how the water department is going to handle the emergencies.
Okay. This is going to be, something we can add to. So if there's some deficiencies in it.
Well, we need a policy on now. I've been asking.
We have no policy right now, other than
That's
what we
why
have.
I'm asked the board to vote in a policy since, I don't know, February or so, on a communications policy. I'm trying to put together an operations manual for the water department, and I have no policy to that might be how we communicate, but the policy I developed was for the water department, which included water commissioners and employees.
Okay, I'm talking about the communication policy between the board and our only employee, the superintendent, so.
Tim, I cannot, I really, on all the boards I've served on, I've never seen the board or the chairman set the agenda. It's always been the department manager, the fire chief, police chief for the public safety boards, the library director, and the board of health. They've all set those agendas with the input from the board members, but not for the, I think you were reading there that the chairman would set the agenda and give it, I can't.
That's what's been happening. The chairman has been setting the agenda. The other board members haven't had any input.
So why wouldn't we just say, you know, all board members can have access to the superintendent?
This kind of covers that, and it says that at the meeting, we decide what goes on the agenda.
Maybe just got a question.
Commissioner Dalzell, have you approached me to have items added to the agenda, and have they been showing up on the agenda?
Yes, they have.
Thank you. So that's not a true statement, Mr. Toomey.
I've had several instances where I've asked for certain items to be on the agenda.
Yes, you have. And the chairman at the time did not want them on the agenda, because the chairman sets the agenda.
I haven't talked to the chairman on one of those issues, but none of those requests were put forward.
At the time, the chairman felt they were already discussed and dealt with.
And there was no reason, as far as I can say, that there was any reason at all that those items couldn't go on the agenda.
He had the final say.
Well, that's what I mean. The chairman is acting as the deciding vote on a board. If some of the board members want particular items to go on the agenda, you're welcome to do so.
Then I think it's a handshake's good enough between the three of us.
Well, she needs a communication policy that, you know, handles what, you know, we're going to be doing as a board to handle with her.
I think what she addressed earlier is the department's communication policy would have a couple paragraphs for the chairman.
Yeah, right, good slip,
sorry
John.
about that.
Good slip, John.
For the water board, you know? And instead of having, I'm not comfortable with that, the way that's written.
Well, I gave you a copy of it last meeting. And
yeah, I went through it and I wasn't comfortable with it.
Okay, so Mr. Dalzell, you comfortable with it?
I'll second it. I read
Okay.
it, but you're the chairman. I want you and Mary Beth to both work on the agenda together.
Okay, Mr. Dalzell, second it.
John and I
All in favor?
have an input. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay.
I'm opposed.
The second motion is I, Timothy Toomey, move to rescind and replace the current practice policy related to review and authorization of the payment of expenses, expense warrant, with the following standing policy to ensure full fiscal transparency and accountability. All agenda items for all future regular scheduled meetings with the Board of Water Commissioners will be collectively determined by the members of the board present while in open session and by a vote by the board just prior to the conclusion of every meeting. To ensure the lawful and orderly utilization of the policy, it requires adoption and implementation of the following subsections. In the review and authorization of payment of expenses, expense warrant shall be a standing agenda item and posted as such in accordance with the open meeting laws. Prior to authorization of payment expenses, including payroll, the superintendent shall provide the board as a standing operating procedure all expenses necessitating their approval for payment on the record in open session to allow the board an opportunity to review, discuss, if necessary, and approve all expenses, ensuring full transparency and accountability. Any non-routine expenses exceeding, this is $250, we're going to change that to, was it $800? Shall require pre-approval by the board in order to comply with this requirement. The superintendent at the conclusion of the meeting shall request the board post the proposed expenses as an agenda item without discussing any such in accordance with the open meeting law for discussion and approval of the said expenses by the board at their next scheduled meeting.
Tim, we already have that one.
agenda for 2 weeks from now, when there's a dozen things can happen between now and that meeting that need to be.
We can still add to that. We can still add to that. In this,
You may be the new
yeah.
chairman, but the committee
This,
policies like that are.
You're out of order. 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 Work on that. But you're out of order.
Sorry.
So do I have a second on that?
I said we already have that.
Okay, so we already have that? Okay. I don't know what's so funny.
Did you second?
Ms. Wiseman, but, you know. you
So
can-
predictable,
So
Mr.
anyways,
Toomey, so predictable.
why don't you, can you give us your memo on,
I'm sick, I'm going home.
okay, good for you.
Tim,
All right, what,
you have to like that.
What's the status of that paper in front of you right now?
this second motion is not passed.
We already have it.
What do you mean we have it?
At $800.
Yep, that was from earlier.
Yeah,
But that is not passed.
this is passed, we already voted on it.
Excuse me?
No.
Motion one is voted on.
No, we did not.
I did not
No one, I
second
did
Oh,
not hear a vote on that.
Wait a minute.
We voted earlier.
Motion one, and there's two motions here, John.
that. Excuse me. That one passed, the other one did not, John.
Oh, yeah, one passed and one did not.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So the second, see, there's two here.
Yeah, okay.
And the second motion discovered discretionary spending.
Yep, and that did not pass, correct?
That did not pass.
Okay, okay.
All right.
I'll
so
make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second. All in favor?